So we're going to talk about we'll talk to Matt today. Matt has qualified for the Torian Pro coming up very shortly, the end of this month, and we're just going to talk about Matt, his experiences leading up to this point, his performance last year, what he's worked on since last year, what he expects the events to be like, and we'll talk a little bit about what he's hoping to do well at and what he's thinking he still needs to improve on to get to that next stage. So
insider knowledge.
That's it. So we'll start with Matt first and talk about what program you're currently following, and we'll also talk about how your open performance went. So let's start with the program first.
Yeah, so I am coached by Adam Rogers from Training Think Tank. For those who don't know who he is, he's Alexis Raptor's coach, is probably the most notable person. The programming wise at the moment, because of the time of season, where me and pretty much the whole semi-final group of athletes from TCT is following the semi-final compete path. So it's kind of the group program with our own individual bits sprinkled in, certain pieces getting changed, etc. Just depending on what we specifically need a little bit more exposure to. I.e., for me, it's more ring muscle ups, a little bit more Olympic lifting from that perspective.
Percentage work stay the same, or does that get individualized too?
No, that's more or less the same for the most part. Most of what we get, or what I get anyway, is subjective efforts, right? So it's built to a tough complex or whatever it is for the day. So I have my own ability to modulate that as I need to.
Bit of guidance in there of what he expects, or?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, the intent is just hit, right? And if it's, for me, it's little things like I've had some shoulder issues, so a lot of my snatch work at the moment has been about getting into a better position for my shoulder, this versus this, because this is painful for me. So just trying to fix little things like that. And then I'll have my little pieces before that to try and set myself up well, or set myself up for success. Yeah.
I remember you saying your front back's got a lot better, but it's changed things up with your breathing when you do shoulder overhead.
Yeah, I've worked on. We've been doing a lot of overhead volume, like barbell overhead volume lately. So I have a ganglion in my wrist, and that's sort of flared my wrist up. But what it's meant that I'm doing is I've kind of changed my front rack, and I've actually narrowed my grip, and I've got myself in a better rack position. But the other day I noticed that I'm in this better rack position, and the bar's sitting better on my shoulders and deeper on my shoulders. And I'm getting dizzy at the top of my clean. So I finish my clean, I'm getting ready to go for the jerk, and I'm like, oh man, really lightheaded. So trying to get used to little things like that you fix something and it creates another issue somewhere else.
Yeah, and things you obviously need to iron out now before competition.
Yeah, obviously, take last year's clean front squat jerk complex. I don't want to get to that jerk and be wobbly in my head, right? So I need to have at least the exposure to it. So that I know, hey, even though I'm a little bit dizzy, I can still make my lift. It's just, you're just a little lightheaded, it's fine. Rather than panicking about it.
Because you went through, so for people that don't know, last year you really felt like strength was a weakness. So you went through a period where it was all about putting on a little bit more size, expressing a little bit more strength. Is that still the same goal? Has that improved? How's that changed for you?
That's an interesting one. So my strength was obviously a big weakness for those who watched the pro. I actually put up a decent number in the complex, so my Olympic lifting strength was okay. But if you watch the yoke carry workout, like that varied me, right? I just crossed the finish line. I think my score was cap, no +1 or anything, just cap. So there was a big focus on putting on some weight from a number of perspectives too. Like I have dealt with a bunch of niggles for the last 2 years. I've had patella tendonitis in my knee, my shoulder. I've hurt both my shoulders in the last 2 years in pretty much the same way, and just had these continually reoccurring niggles. So the kind of theme from the last year, from before the pro last year actually, was put on some weight, put on some body fat, and get healthy, which we've done pretty well. I put on 10 kilos since before the last year's Torian Pro. So I went into that. I've cut back down again, but I was weighing, prior to the pro, before I went to the States, I was at like 83 kilos. Got myself all the way up to 92, 93, and I've come back down to about 88, 89 now. But that extra weight and body fat helped with some of those niggles. My knee's not so bad anymore. I'm still dealing with the shoulder, and my other things are a little bit nagging, but that's just that semi-finals training too, right?
Do you have a target weight in mind, or is it just by feel?
No, I've never really been able. I've never had like, I hear people talk about it all the time. I've heard like, I remember Noah talking about it, or Matt Fraser talking about it. They're like, yeah, so like my off-season weight is this, and my training and my competing weight's this. I've never had a competing versus training weight, so I think coming back down to 87, 88 is probably going to be a healthy place for me to be.
And for those listening, when they make that call and they say, okay, this is my off-season weight and this is my competition weight, that's strictly based on their experiences of competition. So
Yeah,
they felt like they competed really well at a certain weight, and then off-season, obviously, they work on other things.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, around competition, I think you need to be able to execute high volume gymnastics, right? And if you're carrying an extra 5 kilos of weight, your ring muscle ups are obviously a lot harder and that kind of thing. So having that experience of okay, I'm better at this weight. Like I know that if I drop 4 kilos, I'd be much better at muscle ups. That's something that's struggled for me since I put on weight. I really like, I was almost 30 unbroken ring muscle ups.
Yeah,
and
it was
now
a big strength.
And now 10 has me struggling.
Yeah.
Right. I can do, I think the biggest set I've done since I put on weight is like 18 maybe. But that's a sacrifice for the strength work. Now on the strength side of it, haven't particularly gotten a lot stronger. I also haven't really been able to test it. So from that perspective, yeah, I'm probably stronger. My ability to move a heavier barbell, like a moderately heavy barbell, has improved a lot, especially with cycling.
And the speed. I noticed the other day, the speed at which you move those percentages is a lot faster.
Yeah, so there's definitely something in the tank there. It's hard to turn around and say, yeah, that worked, because I haven't objectively tested that. I haven't done a 1 rep back squat. I haven't done.
And that's interesting, because you have almost gone through a whole year of training, and you're saying you haven't got to test it.
Yeah.
As if you look at most people, they're trying to test every 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, like I'm very trusting in what I do and what I'm given. We test, like I build to a heavy squat, or I build to a heavy whatever it is quite often, but I don't do a 1 rep max clean and jerk. I don't do a 1 rep max snatch.
The purpose isn't to PR.
No, exactly. So the purpose is to build confidence with a heavy bar, right? And that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. So interesting, I was just going to touch in, you said obviously dropping weight for the gymnastics. When Cam put up that thing, was he talking about a weightlifting bias in CrossFit?
Yes. So he talked about how CrossFit probably, I'd say between about the times of 2016 to probably now, where they've shifted more to a weightlifting bias, where there's more 1RMs, there's more heavy lifts. Like if you look at the games last year, there was a lot of extra gymnastic movements that popped up, things that we haven't seen before, like movements with the rope, like tons of stuff came in, but there was still a lot of heavy lifting. There was like a heavy jerk workout. There was heavy deadlift and front squat workout. There was a heavy sandbag workout. There was yoke carries. There was lots of heavy stuff still there, because it is sexier for the spectator watch. But at the same time, I feel like maybe we're in the phase where that's going to start to transition out slightly, where the gymnastics focus is going to come in a little bit more.
My other side to that is, and I'm just thinking about this now, is it a heavy bias?
Or is it just deceiving?
Or people just getting better and shit's just getting heavier?
Yeah.
I do think, I don't disagree. There's a lot more barbell bias, or like I said, heavy sandbags, carrying heavy things. I don't know if you guys have watched the Bosman docos. I can't remember what they're called, but it's like the theory behind the programming and why he does what he does.
Yeah.
And like one of the workouts he said that he felt was the best test of who, or the best representation of who would win the games, was that shuttle run shoulder to overhead workout.
Yeah.
So it goes to show that like his idea of what an elite CrossFit athlete is like heavy barbell, run fast.
So yeah, sub 5 minute mile, back to that basic.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
is it, the 205 kilo squat or something?
Yeah,
225.
500 mile, 500 pound squats, 227 kilos. So
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
500 pound mile, 500 pound squat, 5 minute mile is kind of where he's at. I do think there's a gymnastics bias that will start to come out now, especially from a skills perspective. Like main site's been programming a lot of press to handstand. There is obviously the crossover gymnastics.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about adaptability, and gymnastics is a great way to test it.
Yeah, so and it's also something that I've heard talked about is that, and from that Bosman likes, is the adaptability to a new standard. So it's like we had with the handstands, same movement, but guess what? Now you've got a 10-inch line from the wall that's going to challenge your body line and make you fundamentally do it properly.
Yeah.
I think, which I kind of like and I kind of don't like. I feel like CrossFit's the sport of finding the most efficient way to do things, and that's not exactly always the most fundamentally correct way. It's like the GHD sit-ups of making you put your hips in a certain place. I feel like that's kind of like hey, we want you to do it exactly the way we say, rather than having touch here. Anyway, I think, I don't know if it's a strength bias or if that people are just getting stronger and it's representative right at the top of the game. I'm excited to see what the programming for the semi-finals looks like. I was going to call it the regionals. Semi-finals looks like this year, because it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Like, does he bias strength? Does he bias?
Yeah, because it's not.
Sticks?
Yeah, this year we're back to that old format where everyone gets the same programming.
Yeah.
So it'll be a lot more insight to what we're going to get at the game.
We kind of jumped a little bit too far ahead. We're going to swing back a little bit just to the Open and quarterfinals, just briefly, and touch on your performances there. Were you concerned coming into the Open and the quarterfinals, knowing that you were sitting a little bit heavier? You were like, there's a potential that maybe because of this weight gain, you may not have made it to the semifinals, and there was a lot of new movements being introduced. Was there anything there that concerned you coming into the Open?
Putting it bluntly, I haven't had the best year training wise. I got married, I'm moving overseas, I have like new work starting. So I have not had a good 8 to 10 months of training. It's been very difficult to get volume in, it's been very difficult to get enough sleep, etc. And stress has been high outside of training, and then you add the training stress on top of that. So I've never been worried about the Open. Like, that's the new system makes it so that the Open is relatively redundant. If you're a semi-final athlete or even a bubble semi-final athlete, the Open's a non-thing, right? You just do it, you use it as like a little benchmark and a tester, and then you get onto semis, the quarters. Coming out of the Open, I personally felt pretty shit. I can't remember I finished in last year's Open, but it was like top 30 easy. This year I was like 90 something, and I was like, oh fuck. So leading into quarters, there was a lot more stress there. I was punished on gymnastics during the Open. Maybe not so much. I'm just trying to think what the workouts were. I was more punished on the workout, the one with the snatches, that I was like, yes, you're going to crush this. You've been working on your strength. You put on this weight. You're going to crush this workout. I think I got one snatch at 225, and I was like,
And the burpee pull-up one, which you'd normally crush.
yeah, I mean, I did well in that. But again, it was like I felt my body weight, right? And then when we had the thruster, I didn't put up what I wanted to on the thruster. I still PR'd my thruster, but it was like I should have put up more. So that had me a little bit concerned. Going into quarterfinals, I was a little bit more panicky than normal, and oddly enough, I didn't do as well as I wanted to on quarters. Workouts that I felt like I should have done well in, I didn't do well in. I did well in the first workout. I got a little penalty on that. for the front squat standard. And then outside of that, I was fine. The workout that I got, like, that I should have done well in, that I was really surprised that I didn't, was the GHD and rowing and whatever workout. At the end of the day, it just came down to GHD speed, and I didn't realize how fast some people can do GHDs. And that just is what it is. You know, you make an extra 50 meters on the rower, which is, you know, hypothetically 10, 15 seconds. And that was a whole 30 places. The other workout that I didn't do well in, I can't even remember half the workouts.
The clean and jerk.
Yes, the clean and jerk one. And that one was frustrating because that was like, again, I've been working on my strength. The burpees mean absolutely nothing. And you guys saw it. I bombed the first go at that. And then the second go, I was a lot better, but still not where I should have been. A little bit of that came down to that kind of high density barbell work wasn't so much a priority in training, and I kind of hadn't been doing it. So when it came to having to clean and jerk 125 15 times, I was like, crap. And then knowing, and this comes down to sort of experiences like we talked about on the last episode, is I hadn't been doing that. I didn't know what my turnover on the barbell could be. Right? So that kind of thing sketched me out a little bit. I think I finished the quarterfinals in like 26. So at the end of the day, it's just about qualifying, and that's all that matters. Yes, it would be nice to start in the top heat or close to the top heat, which is what I did. Like my best year at Torian, I started in the top heat and I stayed there for 2 days.
Yeah, and even some of the hype that goes with it, like you look at who they're talking about on some of the bigger podcasts and stuff, it's all based on.
Yeah, and it builds confidence. Like I cannot tell you how much confidence it builds to hear your name talked about on the Morning Chalk Up or Savant's podcast or whatever it is, and they're like, you know, young gun Matty G or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you get this like bump from that, and it's quite interesting how that works.
That momentum's a huge factor. That external momentum.
Yeah, and it just depends how you take it. Like I looked at Bailey Martin got a shout on Morning Chalk Up the other day, and it was like rookies expected to make the next step.
Yeah, I did see that
this season. And you can you get something like that, and you know, I don't know how that would make me feel, but you would either be like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna crush this, I'm gonna do this, or you'd be like, oh, there's so much pressure, I'm gonna bomb, and you blow up. So that kind of thing definitely helps. There's a lot that comes from being in that heat. But yeah, no, I feel a little bit more confident now than I did during quarters. I feel like you just have to say to yourself, like, not yet, not peak yet. Like this is.
You got more time than you realise.
Yeah. I don't want to say that because it catches up very quickly, but
I've seen a big change in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's small things, right? Like paces that I'm holding on the machines, the gymnastics set volume, the intensity that we're pushing. It's all there, and it's hard to see it when you're in it, but afterwards you're like, oh, okay, I'm okay. And you just have to keep building confidence and know that you can do it.
Recovery times post workouts, they get quicker too.
I don't know. The thing that for me that's been challenging this year that I haven't had before is leading into quarters, the open. So leading into the open, I was training once a day. And I think I maybe would do a double on a Saturday here and there or anything like that. Leading into quarters, we started doing like 1 or 2 doubles a week. And then from quarters to semis now, I'm on 2 sessions every day, 5 days a week. And then I do active recovery on a Thursday if I end up having the time to get into it. So it's hard to say if the recovery time's gotten better because the training time's gone up. So I don't really know. I mean, yeah, potentially. Like I don't feel trashed all the time. I feel like I've gotten more accustomed to the volume than anything, but yeah, I don't know if that's gone up. Like it's hard for me to subjectively say.
So touching on that, I know for me personally, I noticed the volume's lower this year in quarters. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, The exception to that would probably be the GHD row one. I felt like the volume on that was pretty crazy. But again, if you got through 2 rounds of that, it was only 100 GHDs. We've done 150 in the past. So
with 90 pistols.
yeah, so I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, you're right. Volume was lower. So overall, definitely.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it beat you up as much
No.
as last year's one.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if the same thing happens
In semis.
with semis, where it's like still a good test, but not to the point where you're just destroying everyone.
What are you expecting to see at semifinals now that the programming is going to be universal across the board? Like, we know we're probably going to get a lift of some form. We know there's going to be a sprint workout for the final workout, and then the other ones there probably be some long endurance piece, and then 3 or 4 others.
I mean, is it 7 workouts? I think it's 7.
6 or 7.
But let's say 7, right? So it's 2, 3, 2 across the weekend. Day 1, day 2, day 3. I think from the perspective of like getting well-rounded programming in, yeah, there needs to be something. There will be something long. I've heard some rumors about workouts coming out with runs and long rows and that kind of thing. So something long, sprint, 100%. The lift, I almost imagine that the lift will come back to being like a ladder or something like that, or something. Maybe.
Maybe a complex again.
Yeah,
I haven't
yeah.
really seen single like just snatching or clean and jerk for a while.
Yeah. Something that I'm half expecting to see, just because of how main site programming's looked at the moment, and Bosman's sort of style of things, is like something with legless rope climbs or strict legless rope climbs. I know he wanted to do that at the games with that alpaca event. Bringing kettlebells back in, and then more of that gymnastics, like fundamental thing, or just varied gymnastics. Like, I was doing wall-facing kipping handstand push-ups yesterday, which felt ridiculous, but it was like, you never know, right? Parallel stuff, press to handstands, all that kind of stuff. I don't think the thing with the standardized programming now, and that I know they have to be aware of, is whatever they do, everybody has to be able to do the same thing, right? So they can't turn around to a semi-final and be like, yeah, we're going to have this sandbag clean ladder if the semi-finals if they can't get that sandbag, right? It kind of needs to be the same there.
Universal, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like there's a little bit of restriction there. I know in the old days of the regionals, they had, the same lot of gear moved around. So like, it was one weekend it was on the East Coast, and the West Coast, and Central. So maybe that's something they do, but yeah, I think you'll see. I would like to see a little bit more of that. It's Bosman's style of programming. Like, hey, can you do a 360 on your hands? Can you do a press to shoulder stand?
Yeah, I like a little bit off topic, but with that email we got where CrossFit spoke about getting rid of 20% of the staff, we're probably going to see simplicity. There's probably not going to be the resources for them to move around, like you said, the sandbags and things like that. So
yeah, it'll
be interesting to see.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see, but I would like it if there was, we saw it at Wodapalooza, max duration parallel handstand hold, like that kind of thing would be, whilst I don't know how well I do at it, that kind of thing would be cool to see. Yeah, I think the testing body will be a little more well-rounded. Like, I mean, previous years in Torian, not knocking the programming or anything like that, but it was heavy. Everything was heavy, for the most part, or barbell bias. So it'll be cool to see it shift a little bit more towards an even playing field. More gymnastics would potentially be cool, and more. I'm never going to be mad when there's something that's machine-based.
Monostructural piece, chipper.
The mixed modality concept of it is always like important. It's kind of what CrossFit's built around. Is where we do tend to see, like you said, a lot of bias towards just
Spectacles.
Yeah.
Make it look good.
I was watching the 2014 documentary 3 days ago. One of the events they had at 2014 regional, which you might remember, it might be something similar that he might touch on, is it was like a max hang snatch into a max distance handstand walk. Maybe not a max distance handstand walk, but maybe like a combination of like that parallel handstand, press to handstand, something like that, with a like Olympic lift or something that's like, you know, heavy, and then something that's like gymnastics heavy, and combine the elements together. So then they've got multiple tests. And that was like a part A, part B event where you could get multiple scores depending on how well you did. So maybe we'll see something like that come up.
That would actually be really cool. Something I don't like about the early stages of competition is I hate that there's so few scoring opportunities. Like, you know, you go to the games and you get 13 to 15 scoring opportunities. You go to a semi-final and you've got 6 or 7. Right? It doesn't leave you room to correct your mistakes. That being said, like, don't make mistakes as it is, but you know, you have to. I feel like it would be nice to have more opportunities. Like, one of the best I've done in a semi-final outside of Torian in my first year was Auschamps that year, and we had, like, as much beat down as it was, we had like 14 events right across 4 days. I was exhausted. But I came 9th, or I tied 9th with 3 other dudes, so I was 11th. But the reason I did well in that was I had this very wide variety of tests that I had the opportunity to do well in. And the ones that I didn't do well in, they didn't hide themselves, but it blended in a little bit better. So yeah, I think having more scoring opportunities would be cool.
I agree. Like, we were talking about it the other day, like, even just some of the local comps, you're starting to see with CrossFit. One thing that I brought up that I think is a bit of an issue is if you're going to let single modalities be tested. So, for example, Olympic lifting. So you're just going to do an optimal strength. But then you try and incorporate other disciplines. So you're going to go, I'm going to do swimming. Why do you not allow the expression of that discipline? Why do you always restrict it with its volume? So you go, okay, I'm going to put Olympic lifting in. But you never say to the athlete you're capped at 100.
Yeah.
You let them express their top end.
Yeah.
But then you ride swimming and you go to 25 meters.
Yeah.
What about the good swimmers? Like, aren't you meant to allow them to express their discipline?
Or should everything be combined?
Yeah, exactly. If you're going to allow the expression, you've got to do it across the board.
Yeah.
Same with gymnastics. If you're going to allow high volume gymnastics expression with the 30 ring muscle ups for time or whatever, that's great because you're doing that with the Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
But when you take that out or you add new disciplines and you say, let's do it in a way that doesn't matter. Like the shuttle run, that's probably the one debate with the shuttle run. It's like, well, if you're a good runner, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I don't mind the expression of like one, like, hey, build to a max of this. But I actually agree with that, where it's like huge.
Because of what you said, the scoring option.
Yeah,
like
don't allow a specialist to crush everybody else, and then not allow a specialist weightlifter to crush everybody else, but then not allow a specialist runner to have their shot. Like I get that. I mean, the argument against that could be like, and I choose weightlifting because that seems the most predominant. Is like, oh, well, a specialist weightlifter is probably still going to do well in the weightlift in a mixed weightlifting event, right? So it's kind of like if you're really a good runner, you should still do well no matter what. But yeah, I feel like maybe that is a good point. It's like, hey, don't have specialist events like that. You're going to do snatching or whatever it is. Make it something where.
Well, why did they take it out of the open? Like, just look at history. Like, they had that workout where we had the 7-minute AMRAP and then we had the lifting. And these lifters came in and absolutely shat all over the leaderboard. Yeah. They were like, okay, not doing that again.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
They did open up this year with the thruster event, even though like the Wall Street weightlifter is a good example. He did pretty averagely on the workout, but still a good score for someone of whatever his body weight. He got like 119 reps, but then he won the thruster with, by the way, he had like 20 pounds on the next guy, but he has a posted thruster of like 200. So he had more potential. It was just the time that he didn't have enough time to get to his potential. But then my argument on that too is they don't really let powerlifters express their their weight. There's never a 1RM squat and a 1RM deadlift, 1RM bench. It's always like, squat 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, deadlift heavy. But in a workout sense, so it's only the Olympic weightlifters that really get to express that feat of strength. Whereas from a spectator point of view, seeing someone deadlift 260, 270 is pretty cool. Seeing someone squat well over 240 is impressive, or bench heavy. But they never have that in a single element. They never let them express their single strength. Or, we've only just seen this year a strongman component that allows them to express their single strength on the sandbag. Why couldn't they translate that to the yoke, or maybe some Atlas stones or something like that? So it'd be interesting to see what they can do and what they bring to this year's semi-finals event that hopefully makes it different, because this is a big year. Every year up until this year has been kind of random and off the charts, and you never know what to expect. Where this year we have a bit more of an idea that every region's going to be the same. So whatever they're going to have to program has to be good, has to be something that you're going to see event records, which is the coolest thing they had about the old style. He set the event record. He set the world record for this particular workout.
I'm super excited for that idea of doing the same programming as everybody, because I was around during the regionals time, but I just started, right? So I got to do the second year of semifinals. Sanctionals. And I was always I loved watching regionals and the idea that everybody was on or doing the same workouts. You had this world he set the time to beat for the world and that kind of thing. I thought that was sick, and I'm super excited about that. That was when I was this far from not qualifying this year. That was probably one of the things I was the most bummed about. Was I'm not going to get to be in that first year of back to regionals programming, and
that's cool. We've heard TTT say it, we've spoken about it too, even a 30 ring muscle-ups for time, why do you need to make it 45 now? Wouldn't it be better to just have the whole field racing to see who could go unbroken? Let's say we had at that time we had tested it before on the high rings, all right, so we have 1 or 2 athletes go unbroken, but then you do it again in 3 years and now you have 15 or 18 go unbroken. That's still exciting. I think to rebut that, I think the adding more helps to progress the sport. But I get what you mean. Is it's also
when's it enough?
Yeah, don't go crazy. Don't go too crazy.
It's still gonna be entertaining, and like we talk about that 100-meter sprint. They don't fucking increase the distance or make you run backwards. It's the same, and it's still exciting. They do something stupid.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Just don't need to do it for everywhere.
I can't remember what the line is, but it's Greg Glassman talking about, the elegance is in the programming or something like that. And it the simplest, it doesn't need to be complicated. I see it all the time. Is I like outside of the box. I really like that. That's cool. We did it with one of our comps. We made them do burpee shuttle runs. It was hey, how do you make 2 really shit movements really hard together? That's fine. But there's some things where I'm you're just taking the piss. Which is if they did kipping wall facing handstand push-ups, that's kind of how I would feel. It's come on, man. Just leave us with the handstand push-ups. What? Don't change it. I want the movements to progress, and you want things to you need the sport to progress, but you also need some level of somewhat standardization. Right?
Yeah, and structure. And like you said, we've said it before, that just has to come out early. We know when the season starts, you write the rule book, you give some guidance around it, people have time to get used to it.
Yeah. I mean, it's we've talked about this before, but the crossover double unders of the games that, I didn't think that was bad. I felt it should have been released early to give athletes a chance to practice, but the fact that the way it was done just made athletes look stupid, and that was
you're meant to be showcasing the best in the sport.
Yeah, it was come on.
But it was good from the sense as a normal spectator to see that the best athletes can suck too.
Yeah.
It's it did. It really humbled a lot of people, and I think from Bosman's point of view, he was trying to make sure that hey, these are things that you should be good at. you're not good at them. Oh, that sucks to be you. It was just the fact that the entire field wasn't good at them, and there was like one or two people who could do them. That was probably the negative side of it. It was like, yeah, you did make them look like fools, and he like the way that he did it was good. It was just that it could have been they could have gotten some notice, at least maybe like even a week
I
prior.
think they got told on the Monday.
There you go.
So
Okay.
they got told on the Monday, which is cool. Like that's enough. That's okay. Personally, I've been practicing those for like 6 months and I still can't do them. So I don't know how much good 4 days would do, but not even 4 days. But yeah, it's just like I feel like a little bit of notice is good. The whole unknown and unknowable thing, I think now is, I think here's where I think unknown and unknowable is great. Unknown and unknowable movement is getting silly, right? Like the whole point is that I should be able to pull anything out of any movement out of this hopper and any combination, and you can do it. Yeah, but we know what fucking movements are in the hopper. Like, don't go and add, I don't know, fairy jumps into the hopper and then pull that out too. It's like, it's that I feel like I've never had a conversation with Greg Glassman or anything like that, but I feel like that is what unknown and unknowable means. Like, hey, I'm going to give you all of this in this format. Any task, you should be able to do it. But it's not like, hey, fly a fucking fighter jet. I'm big exaggerating across the world with no training. It's like, hey, you need to give some degree of like, I don't know.
But even then, is it really just an idea? Because it's like, you say unknown and unknowable, but there's people that know it. Like, they have to test the movements. There's people on the inside. Like,
Yeah.
like, there's human error, which means it's not unknown and unknowable to everybody.
Yeah.
Someone's got an advantage.
Yeah, someone would know. But that's one of the things that I feel like is a little bit somewhat silly. Not silly. I don't want to call it silly, but it's like, hey, just throttle back a little bit. You're getting carried away. Don't make this excessive. Like, or at least provide some kind of insight. Like, I mean, shit. Like, half the reason I got into CrossFit was because I thought it was really cool to learn how to do new things, and I really like that. Like, I've been trying to learn how to do press to handstands lately, and it's fun. I'm having fun doing it because I really struggle with it. My shoulders don't deal well with it, so it's been an interesting thing to learn. Same with the crossovers. I'm having fun learning how to do them, despite being covered in whip marks. But like, that stuff's fine. It's cool. You just don't be silly with it. It's like, I mean, do you remember when we did that skipping thing and we were skipping on our butts?
Yeah.
Like, imagine that. We'd skip on our asses. Like, that kind of thing would just be, silly. They're not going to do that. But my point is, like, there needs to be some degree of, like, we won't take it past here.
We're not going to make people snatch and then run with the barbell overhead.
Yeah.
Like some stupid shit like that.
I mean, at the end of the day, their job is to grow the sport. Like, that's their job. Like, so if they're doing it, great. If they're not, sort shit out.
Yeah. I personally, I want to see the sport progressed by making things harder, not by adding new things. You know what I mean? Like I like the games is different. I love that at the games you get to actually ride a bike and clean a heavy sandbag, do obstacle courses. Like, that shit's cool. But on that note of that new stuff and unknowable stuff is like, they can all ride bikes. They can all climb up a rope. They can all run. Like, it's not new. It's just varied. The same. I mean, again, crossovers. Yeah, it's not new. It's just varied. Like, but it's not a skill acquisition thing at the last minute, which is difficult. You have to respect. I feel like there has to be some respect for like natural, neurological timelines, right? Like, I can't learn how to do crossover double unders in one day like that. If I say this, I'm jacked as shit and I can't cross my arms enough to do the crossover. Like, that's a problem, right? I mean, that's obviously not going to happen from the game's perspective, but you have to respect things like that. You can't. It's like one of the things that I'm hoping to God never happens is double dumbbell or double kettlebell overhead squats.
Yeah.
Because there are people that they just don't have the mobility for it. Like I had to do some double kettlebell overhead squats yesterday, and I felt like my spine was going to snap in half because of how much I had to arch. And you could go and say to me, like, and work on your mobility, and yeah, I can, and I could probably get better. But anatomically, there are going to be people out there who can't. Like, I don't think can you double?
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
Not a chance. My thoracic rotation.
I feel like you need to there has to be some respect for the fact that certain changes and certain adaptations to doing some new thing take time. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm scared of, is that they're going to forget that.
And there's limits. There's diminishing returns. That's on everything. You can't avoid that.
Yeah.
One thing that I also wish they would just consider is their position of influence. So like obviously being an affiliate owner, we do a lot of local CrossFit comms. By them bringing out these new movements and stuff like that, and the way they throw them out there, you're influencing these other local comps to do the same.
Yeah.
And then what we saw at one of the other comps, I'm not going to mention names, is you start seeing people having to do reverse muscle ups into muscle ups, falling off the rig, hurting themselves. And it's like, okay, like this is just getting silly now. Like, and yeah, they maybe aren't making the right call, but their calls are influenced by the top.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to do what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think that's true. It's just, there has to be a standard of how far it can go.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that covers off pretty nicely. A lot to do with you, Matt. Anything else you'd like to say? Is there any particular goal you have in mind? Obviously, making the games is every semi-final athlete's goal, but
I mean, that's what we want to do, right? But you also have to be realistic about where you're at. Like, I would love to. I really want to make the games, and I really, that's number one goal. But you also do have to be realistic about where you're at a certain point in time. Like for me, that this year, unless the programming that comes out is like just Matt wheelhouse, probably not going to happen, right? Like top three, they weren't kind enough to give us an extra spot this year. Anyway, it would be nice. It would be nice. I'm well aware that it's probably not on the cards for me. So it's just about putting in the best effort possible. For me, a little bit of it is, and I've spoken to you guys about this, is like I can do Australia or Oceania, but I can also go to Africa. So for me, it's working out, and part of why I'm excited about the programming is being able to turn around and be like, okay, it's worth going to Africa. You'll do really well there. You might actually have a spot, a chance, or no, staying in.
Can you do both in the same year?
No, hell no.
you have to choose.
You have to pick one.
Yeah.
It's definitely. I mean, I know we touched on a couple of discussions and negative things, but there's definitely some positives. Like there's a lot of positives with where things are going, and I think the conversation and everything around it is heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I like it. I think the sport in general is going in a good direction. I think a little more known would be nice from a movements perspective and a standards perspective.
Well, you're a coach too, so writing for athletes, it's nice to kind of have a bit of a heads up.
Yeah, exactly. So it just gives you, that was one of my things I said to athletes. I was like, and now I don't know if I need to be programming crossovers every week for you. Like, I don't know. This is my thing is like, I was like, did they just test this? Now we kind of know it's going to be a thing. But did they just test that at the games? Or was that like, this is here now, it's staying. We know that it's here now, it's staying. But like, imagine they do that at the games, you test, and then everyone's like, we've got to do those. And then you never see it again.
Like the ring handstand push-ups.
Yeah, like ring handstand push-ups. You're like,
Gone.
Here you go.
that was a bad idea. And
Yeah.
you never see it again. That would be disappointing for me as a coach. Is I'd be like, well, I had all this opportunity to help my athlete get better in these different ways, and
Actually, ring dips is another one.
that's the other side of a lot of these new things. It's like, whatever you do, it needs to be standardizable across everybody.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you can't make the movement a certain way that it's like it's too hard to to keep it the same. You can't leave room for human error, or you need to minimize human error. So like things like the band and that kind of thing, that it's kind of difficult to have that be properly standardized. That's why I like the new handstand standard, is because it's like, hey, 10 inches from the wall, 30 inches wide, you need to touch this in some aspect. I don't care if it's your freaking 1 mil of your finger or your whole hand.
Yeah. And hopefully it stays like that. Or like you said, if they do make some pivots or changes to make it better, they let people know ahead of time.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, I think it's going in a good place. You know, Dave Castro had a very beat you up kind of mindset and just test their metal. Bosman's got a little bit more behind him. That's like, all right, are these guys physically athletes? Let's see what they can do. I mean, Castro was the same, but it was more like mental too. That being said, you know, he had the capital run and stuff like that, which looked like just shit. But yeah, it'll be good to see where it goes. The programming, I saw something that said the programming came out on the 11th, or the workouts come out on the 11th. I might be wrong, but
nah, I know that the guys running the events have had them for a few weeks.
Right? Yeah. But for us, like, it'd be nice for us to
see them.
I'll be excited once that comes out.
They're meant to come out on the 11th of this month.
I think so.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. I could be wrong. I know the first week of semi-finals is the 22nd. So that'll be Africa and the West.
Yeah.
I think.
And then when are you competing? What date is the Torium Pro?
26th.
26th? So it's next week after that, week 2 of...
Yeah, week 2. So, and that's another thing I like about the new programming, is I get to go and watch the first week and actually get a realistic idea of like, okay, hey, that's what's doable. Right? Like you can see what mistakes people make, and so it takes a little bit of the first heat bias away.
Yeah.
You know, or the top heat bias away. Those guys always get to sit there and they watch and they're like, huh, that guy went unbroken, what an idiot, and you see it, you know, crush them, or they have a time, target time makes a big difference.
We can always test them for you if you
want. Realistic time.
Yeah. Well,
did not complete.
I mean, you gotta finish the workout.
You got to about start the workout too. If it starts with snatches at 110, you're out. There you go. Well, I think that's going to cover off our podcast nicely. This was a bit of a longer one, but we're just diving in deep to Matt. Matt, where can people find you on social media if they want to follow your journey?
The Matt Gilpin on Instagram. That's about it. I don't really exist anywhere else.
There you go.
Not that I post a whole lot, but
no TikToks yet.
No TikToks. I'll never go down that hole.
That's fair enough. Well, there you go. That's going to cover off episode 20, the Matt Gilpin Show. Hopefully his performance is really good at the Torium Pro, and that starts around the 26th of May this month, and be excited to see how that goes. If you guys have any questions for Matt, leave them in the comments down below, and as always, thank you for listening to the podcast.